What would you do if the most powerful person in the room was the one everyone dismissed as unimportant? What if arrogance blinded a CEO so completely that he failed to recognize the woman he just insulted held the very fate of his company in her hands? This isn't just a tale of power, but a piercing look at justice, prejudice, and how the underestimated can become the ultimate reckoning. Welcome to a story where silence is strategy, and the final word is spoken not through arguments, but through action. "I don't shake hands with staff," Richard Kellerhan declared coldly, retracting his hand and turning away, as though the very presence of the woman before him had disturbed the air. His voice, sharp and dismissive, echoed across the sleek glass walls of Nexora's towering headquarters. He didn't look at her again, just adjusted his cufflinks and smirked. Camilla Duarte had extended her hand with professional courtesy and calm dignity, offering a gesture of equality. The silence that followed his rejection was deafening. No one in the boardroom dared to speak. A few exchanged glances. Others looked down, pretending not to notice. Laughter hovered at the edges of the room, nervous and shallow. None of them suspected who she was. Without a word, Camilla sat down at the far end of the table. Her posture was calm, composed, regal. She reached into her sleek black purse and pulled out her phone. With a few taps, she sent a single word to someone waiting in the wings: initiate. 15 minutes later, chaos ignited. Screens flickered, alerts pinged. Red lines zigzagged violently across financial dashboards. Nexora's stock price was plummeting, an alarming 3% drop within moments. Yet there was no visible cause. No scandals had leaked, no headlines, no tweets. Just pure, unexplainable market terror. Kellerhan's arrogant expression faltered as confusion turned into disbelief. Sweat beaded on his brow. He leaned forward, scanning the screens in front of him like a drowning man searching for a lifeline. "What's happening? This doesn't make sense. Who triggered this?" he barked at his analysts. No one had an answer. No one dared guess. Then his voice dropped to a whisper, trembling as realization crept in. Who is this woman? The answer would soon cost him more than $2 billion. Earlier that morning, the sun glinted off the glass skyscrapers of the financial district as Camilla Duarte stepped out of a sleek black car. Her heels clicked confidently against the marble floor as she entered the building. She wore a charcoal suit, sharp as a blade, with a crisp white blouse and a small emerald pin at her collar, a quiet nod to her late grandmother, who had raised her on dignity and strength. As she entered the 52nd floor of Nexora Systems, every man in the room turned to look, but not out of admiration. Their stares were laced with skepticism. It wasn't the first time Camilla had walked into a room like this. It wouldn't be the last. CEO Richard Kellerhan, lounging at the head of the conference table, barely looked up. When he did, his eyes scanned her like she was out of place. "Are you from the cleaning company?" he asked, only half joking. His assistant shifted uncomfortably, clearly embarrassed. Camilla smiled politely, not even blinking. "No, I'm here for the meeting." He raised an eyebrow. "The investment meeting?" She nodded. "Correct." Kellerhan gave a short, condescending laugh. "Must be a mistake. That meeting is closed to outside consultants." "I'm not a consultant," she said calmly. "Oh?" he replied. "Then who are you?" She extended her hand. "Camilla Duarte." He looked at her hand but didn't take it. "And what exactly do you do?" She replied evenly, "I buy companies like yours." But Kellerhan didn't hear her, or rather, he chose not to. He turned away and muttered to his board members, "We'll wait for the real investor." Chuckles filled the room, soft but cruel. Camilla stood quietly, still holding her hand out for a moment, then calmly lowered it. No trace of emotion crossed her face. She was used to this, but this time she wouldn't forgive it. Camilla took her seat, opened her tablet, and began tapping notes. She didn't speak. She didn't argue. She observed. Every arrogant smirk, every whispered insult, every tone-deaf joke, they were ammunition, and she was storing it. To the men around her, she looked harmless, just another unimportant visitor who would soon be forgotten. But Camilla had built an empire on being underestimated. She thrived in silence. Her power didn't come from raising her voice. It came from knowing when to strike. As the meeting dragged on, Kellerhan held court like a king addressing his subjects, his voice echoing across the sleek glass walls of the boardroom. He strutted back and forth, gesturing grandly toward the screen behind him as colorful bar charts and line graphs scrolled past in perfect synchronization. "We're on the brink of something historic," he proclaimed, barely pausing for breath. Buzzwords flew from his mouth like a magician throwing glitter. Agile growth, strategic disruption, synergistic integration. A flurry of empty jargon designed to mask the fragile reality behind the numbers. The executives around the table nodded dutifully, some scribbling notes they didn't understand, others simply pretending to care. They were used to Kellerhan's monologues. He was the man with the vision, the swagger, the billions. No one dared interrupt him, not even when the numbers stopped making sense. Camilla sat still, composed and quiet, her expression unreadable. To the others, she might have looked passive, but inside her mind, the pieces were moving fast. She had already read the financial reports in detail the night before, in 3 different languages. She had cross-checked every chart, every footnote, every backdoor deal that had been buried under hopeful projections. She knew what Kellerhan was hiding. The massive loans dressed up as strategic capital, the failed AI venture bleeding cash, the employee lawsuits quietly buried under NDAs and hush money. And now, watching him up there, smug and oblivious, she realized just how deep his denial ran. Then a faint buzz. Inside her purse, her phone vibrated once, barely audible, but thunderous in meaning. Another 1.5% drop. The stock price was unraveling in real time. The market had begun to sniff out the rot. Whispers had turned into murmurs, murmurs into doubts, and doubts into action. It wasn't a free fall yet, but the cracks were widening. Kellerhan paused, mid-sentence, as a young assistant stepped forward, whispered something into his ear. His expression shifted, first confused, then stunned, then terrified. His face turned pale as marble. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. He looked up, scanning the room. And then, for the first time all morning, he looked directly at Camilla. Not the dismissive glance he had given her when she first walked in, not the superior smirk he wore when he made his snide remark. This time, he saw her, and what he saw shook him. Not a secretary, not some investor's assistant, not the diversity hire. He saw the woman who could end him. Camilla tilted her head slightly. Not a word escaped her lips. She didn't need to speak, because power isn't always loud. Sometimes it sits in silence, watching, waiting, ready.